I was 19 when this happened, during the summer after my first year of college. Back then, I thought I was smarter than everyone else. My parents called me stubborn. My older sister called me impossible. I just thought I was independent. That summer, my mom rented a cabin deep in northern Vermont for a week-long family getaway. She kept talking about how peaceful it would be. No traffic, no crowds, just forests, mountains, and silence. I hated the idea immediately. I had just started talking to this girl named Melissa, and all I wanted to do was stay home, play games with my friends, and talk to her late into the night. Instead, I got trapped in the woods with my family. The cabin itself looked normal in the photos online, but when we finally arrived after 6 hours of driving through endless trees, the place felt wrong. It sat completely isolated at the end of a dirt road surrounded by dense forest. The nearest neighbor was supposedly half a mile away. The cabin was old, dark brown, and built on top of a hill overlooking a dried-up riverbed. The weirdest part was the basement.
There was an exterior basement door built into the side of the hill beneath the cabin. Heavy metal doors with a rusted padlock hanging from them. The owner, a skinny older man named Walter, met us there when we arrived. He wore oversized overalls despite the heat and kept smiling in this nervous, twitchy way. Before leaving, he pointed toward the basement doors and said, "Don't worry about those, just storage." None of us even asked. That night, during dinner, my little sister Emily asked why there were scratches all over the basement doors. Walter laughed too hard at that question. "Bears," he said quickly. Then he left. The first 2 days were mostly normal. We went hiking, visited a nearby lake, and spent nights sitting around the fire. I mostly kept to myself, annoyed about being there. By the third night, a storm rolled in. The rain was violent, the kind that shakes windows and makes trees groan outside. Around midnight, I was still awake, texting Melissa, while everyone else slept upstairs. That's when I heard the first bang. It came from underneath the cabin. I paused my music and listened. Another bang. Slow. Heavy. Like someone hitting metal. I walked to the kitchen window and looked outside toward the hill leading down to the basement doors. Rain hammered the glass so hard I could barely see. Then lightning flashed. For half a second, I saw the basement doors standing wide open. I froze. I knew they'd been locked earlier. I remembered because Emily joked about bears breaking in again. I grabbed my phone flashlight and told myself I was overreacting. Maybe the wind had blown them open. Still, I didn't want to go outside alone, so I woke my dad up. He was irritated immediately. When I told him about the doors, he sighed and followed me downstairs. We looked through the back window together. The basement doors were closed again. Locked. My dad looked at me like I was insane. "You dragged me out of bed for that?" I started questioning myself. Maybe lightning distorted what I saw. My dad went back upstairs annoyed, and I stayed downstairs feeling stupid. About 10 minutes later, I heard something else. Footsteps. Not upstairs. Underneath me. Slow, creaking movements directly below the floorboards. I stood up so fast I knocked over a chair. The footsteps stopped instantly. Every hair on my body stood up. I remember whispering, "Hello?" No response. Then came 3 loud knocks from directly beneath the floor. Boom, boom, boom. I ran upstairs and woke everyone up this time. My mom was panicking immediately while my dad tried acting calm, but I could tell by his face that he heard it too. We all stood silently in the upstairs hallway listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No knocks. Just rain. Eventually, my dad grabbed a flashlight and said he was checking the basement. My mom begged him not to go alone, so I followed him outside. The storm had eased slightly, but the woods around the cabin looked pitch black and endless. As we walked down the muddy hill toward the basement doors, I noticed something strange immediately. The padlock was gone. Not broken. Gone. My dad slowly pulled one of the metal doors open. The smell hit us first. Rotten food mixed with mildew and something sour I can't describe. The basement wasn't really a basement. It looked more like a bunker dug beneath the cabin. Concrete walls, narrow hallway, one dangling light bulb at the far end. And the light was on. My dad called out. No answer. We started walking down the stairs. I remember hearing water dripping somewhere deeper inside. Then my flashlight landed on a pile of things in the corner. Blankets, empty food cans, water bottles. Someone had been living down there. Fresh footprints covered the concrete floor. My dad immediately told me we were leaving. That's when we heard the door slam upstairs. The metal basement doors crashed shut above us. My dad sprinted up the stairs while I followed right behind him. We shoved the doors open together and stumbled back into the rain. Standing near the trees, about 30 feet away, was a man. Tall, thin, completely bald. He was just staring at us. Even in the dark, I could see how pale he was. My dad yelled at him, asking who he was. The man didn't answer. He just took one slow step backward into the trees, then another, and disappeared completely. We ran back inside the cabin and locked every door and window. My mom wanted to call the police immediately, but there was almost no signal out there. My dad finally managed to get one bar near an upstairs window and contacted 911. The dispatcher said officers were at least 40 minutes away. Longest 40 minutes of my life. None of us spoke much after that. We sat in the living room holding kitchen knives and fireplace pokers while the storm continued outside.
At one point, Emily quietly asked, "What if he's still under the cabin?" Nobody answered her. Then we heard it. Footsteps above us. Not on the first floor. On the roof. Slow, scraping movements crossed from one end of the cabin to the other. My mom started crying immediately. Something heavy dragged across the shingles overhead. Then came a loud thud directly above the living room. Dust drifted from the ceiling. The footsteps stopped. For several seconds, everything was silent. Then someone started pulling on the living room window from outside. Very slowly. The handle rattled softly back and forth. Back and forth. My dad shouted that the police were coming. The rattling stopped instantly. A second later, we heard movement running across the roof again. Then nothing. By the time the police arrived, the man was gone. They searched the woods until sunrise and found nothing except footprints behind the cabin leading deep into the forest. One officer eventually searched the bunker beneath the cabin more thoroughly. He found something we hadn't seen. A second room hidden behind a plywood wall. Inside were piles of stolen clothes, canned food,
old photographs, and dozens of pictures of previous families who had stayed at the cabin, including us. Some were taken through the windows at night. Others were from inside the cabin itself. One photo showed me asleep on the couch from earlier that week.
The creepiest part? The photo had clearly been taken before I ever heard the noises downstairs, meaning he had already been inside the cabin long before we discovered him. We left Vermont that morning and never went back. A few weeks later, my dad contacted Walter, the cabin owner, asking if the police ever identified the man living beneath the house. Walter admitted something then. Years earlier, a drifter disappeared somewhere near the property during winter. People assumed he froze to death in the woods. No body was ever found. The police never caught whoever was living beneath that cabin. Sometimes I still think about those photographs, about how long he might have been watching us before we noticed anything at all. And sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night and hear a noise somewhere inside my house, I remember something the officer told my dad before we left. If someone wants to stay hidden long enough, you'd be surprised how close they can get without ever being seen.